Welcome to the road to growth, success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, you road to growth listeners, and I guess profiteers. For people listening today, we have Eric Rosenberg, and Eric Rosenberg, financial writer, and the people that follow him, he classifies as profiteers, so that's why the profiteers. Thank you, Eric, for being on here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so pumped now with that intro. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go conquer the day.
Get excited. There we go. I was listening to some motivational stuff in the morning. That's part of my routine. Do you ever listen to like motivational videos or things like that?
I get motivated by entrepreneurship, really. That's my big motivator. So I go out and I read, a lot of, as a writer, I'm also a big reader. So I read a lot of stories, people who've built little businesses. Lately, I've been into some videos from people doing FBA businesses, fulfilled by Amazon stuff.
Yeah.
So going and buying stuff at Walmart and flipping it for a profit. So I think that's pretty cool. But really just any way people make money gets me excited. That's my hobby. I always joke, is making money.
I mean, it is crazy that how many ways they have out there. I had someone on my podcast that was using, because there's so many different platforms you can buy products from, buy in bulk, and then resell them, make some money off it. Go to Walmart, like you're saying. I think I was listening to something Gary Vee was talking about, where you can buy like the $1 items, $2 items, and resell them for like $8.
Yeah, I mean, that's, even if you have to pay a couple dollars in fees there, I mean, you're 4 or 5xing your money. That's pretty darn cool. That's an interesting investment. And there's like you said, there's a lot of cool ways to make money out there. I actually had a buddy who had his own brand. He was selling like men's shaving kits and stuff like that on Amazon, and it was going really well, a 5-figure monthly business. But the risk of putting your entire business on one platform that someone else owns is the entire business went away in a day. There was an issue where someone, I don't know all the details. Someone said he might have ripped off the brand, which he didn't. It was his own brand. But people play dirty on Amazon to try to get to the top of the rankings, and he didn't have the resources to fight it. So, there's downsides too, but it's a fun side hustle. A fun way to make a few bucks. So, that's been interesting lately.
Yeah, I mean, finding ways, and as a financial writer, what do you mostly focus yourself on?
Yeah, so I write mostly. I joke with clients. I'll write anything with a dollar sign. So I do a lot of financial product reviews. So I focus on best bank accounts, best credit cards, best investment accounts. Lately, with the big boom in cryptocurrencies, best crypto wallets and best cryptocurrency exchanges. So it's fun. I get to explore all sides of the finance world, not just the boring mainstream stuffy investment bankers on Wall Street. But I get that stuff too. I have a finance background. Actually, as part of my MBA program, I managed a portion of the endowment fund at the University of Denver. So while I'm not out there, working on Wall Street, I had a week there as part of my class experience. I managed just like a Wall Street, investment team would do. So I use that same strategy on my own money and get to share it a little bit with readers.
What's your process like of doing the best of? I mean, that has to be, because I know for myself, like when I'm looking, okay, I want to get a underwater camera, right? Something that I can use out there. I'm gonna take a trip to Hawaii, and you go, okay,
I have one back there, I think.
Okay,
that big mess behind me of electronics.
So you look online, and then you start going down the rabbit hole. You go, oh, this has this, this has this, this has this, and you're like, okay, I could just go down forever. Finally, I just tell myself, okay, this is the end of it. This is where I stop. This is what I'm going with. But for yourself, when you're breaking down every single, let's say, camera out there, what's your system like?
Yeah. So kind of the fun thing is I get paid to do that work, so you don't have to when it comes to those financial products. And a couple of times I've gotten sent out into some different categories, like the best men's wallets. So you do, as you said, have to come up with a real strategy and a system. Like if you're doing cameras, I can't just say, oh, well, I have, a Canon and a GoPro, so those are the best. Because, I did my research. That doesn't really mean they're the best. So let's say I'm doing, I'll walk you through an example. A recent one I did was Bitcoin wallets, just because it's a fun one. And, I'm not saying everyone should go buy Bitcoin. I have some, but If it's your thing, you could get a little, but I wouldn't go overboard with crypto. But it's a fun world. So, but let's say you're new to it. You want to find the best Bitcoin wallet. So I'll start by casting a really wide net and try to capture all of the best Bitcoin wallets, which there's probably, I mean, now there's dozens, but realistically, there's probably going to be in any market, 5, 10, 15, 20 products that are really the top. You'll see those are the brands everyone's writing about. I mean, if it's something obscure, like I did best men's dress socks once, that was a funny one. So there's like 1,000 sock brands. So saying what's really the best sock, it does get to be kind of subjective at a point. I'm not really getting a chance to try on 200 different pairs of socks and go on a run wearing them all, or go to a wedding wearing them all or something to try them out. So that one you do have to look at a lot of reviews and a lot of things like that, just to see how other people's experiences are. But regardless of the product, I'm going to do that. So Bitcoin wallets again, I'm going to go look, and I'll go on Google. That's the first place everyone looks for things, right? And I'll probably find the top 20 competing articles writing about the best Bitcoin wallets, because I figure among 20-ish articles, they've probably got the best ones. So I'll go through there and try to check out everything they've written about, which can be a lot. So I'll go through that list, and usually pretty quickly you're able to chop off the bottom half and just say, these ones are really standing out as the best ones. And that gets you to a list of maybe 10 to 15 finalists. When you're aiming, I'm usually aiming for about 7 when I'm trying to do a best of list, because more than that, it's not that helpful, right? I'm trying to do the research for you. So I'll go through, get those top 15-ish, and then I'll start digging into the real details. Product quality. How's it going to stand up if it's a product or a service? How have people been happy with it? What are the average reviews? And I can't just look on Amazon reviews, because I know those can be gamed. So I'll look at Trustpilot. I'll look at the Better Business Bureau for complaints if it's a financial product. If it's I've written about investment brokerages, there I'll check FINRA. That's the body that kind of regulates all the financial industry in the U.S. So I'll look and see if companies have been sued, if there are any like really bad things that would eliminate someone. So then I'm getting down to the top 10, and then I start to look at special features. What makes something really stand out and be special? Because there's probably going to be one general best for everybody, but it's not going to meet every single person's needs. So that's when we get into specific categories. Like with Bitcoin wallets, best for security. People who care more about security are going to have very different needs than someone who's brand new and just wants the easiest one to use. So that's where I start to get into categories and say, this one might not be the best for everybody, but if you have this niche need, it's going to be the best at that. And that's how I'm able to get to around those top 7.
I mean, I didn't realize, and I guess I was naive about it, that Amazon can be gained a little bit with their reviews. Yeah,
so it's interesting how it works. If you really want to go down this rabbit hole, it's a big world out there, because we know Amazon is the number one place to buy anything online in the US. So they have 30-40% market share, some insane percent of what we spend online is all Amazon. I mean, half the stuff in my house is probably from there. So the companies that sell stuff know that, and they want to rank their product the highest. There's a few different ways they try to game the system to do that. One way that I've actually had happen to me was you get just a random product that shows up to your house from Amazon. It's called a ghost review product, or a ghost product. So someone probably in China sent you that product and bought it under someone else's name. And that person then shows up as a verified purchaser on Amazon, and they'll put in a 5-star review, even though they didn't get the product. So that's one way to do it. Or sometimes they will reach out to influencers or people who are busy on Instagram and Twitter and places like that. Say, hey, will you buy this product? And if you give a 5-star review, we'll reimburse you. So that's another way that they can get verified reviews. So Amazon knows about that stuff. And then there's also you see people who just go on and write a review that it doesn't say product verified. So you don't even know if they really bought anything. So they could have just hired 100 people in India to go on using a VPN, so it looked like they were in the US, and just go on and do 5-star reviews for the product a bunch of times. So if you go on and you see a whole bunch of reviews within a couple days and then nothing else, it was probably some kind of an operation they did to boost the scores.
Well, this is noted. Now I need to reassess when I buy things. I'll have to be checking out your platform for that.
I always make a point to look at the 4-star reviews and the 2-star reviews, because those are probably the most honest. So if you see a product with a ton of reviews, the person who gave it 4 stars probably really got it and really liked it, but had a few issues, and they're going to probably be pretty honest. Same with the 2-star. 1 star, they might just be mad at the company or something. They might have had a shipping problem. But a 2-star, they probably really got the product and it just disappointed them. So that's one way to filter out the fake reviews also.
Well, makes sense. Now, hopefully everyone listening is going to be doing the same thing.
Didn't know we were going to be talking about that today, but hey, you never know where you're going to go.
No,
it's fun.
No, I appreciate it. All right, so walk us through, your journey. Finances is usually something that people steer away from. I think most people, because it's a pain point for them, right? It's like, I'm just going to work, get enough money to do what I want to do. But when you actually break down the numbers, it can be something they just want to walk away from. So why did you get into finances?
Well, I've always been kind of a numbers guy. I've always been into math. And when I was a kid, I was like a math science kid, which shocks me that I became a writer. If you'd ever told me, even in college, that I was going to be a writer for a living, I would have laughed at you. Like, no way I'm going to do that. But yes, I was always a math kid. I always did well there. I also had a family that was just kind of a business family. I was lucky to have a grandpa. My grandpa Joe was a business school professor. He taught marketing at the University of Arkansas. Actually, funny to mention Walmart again. He actually knew Sam Walton. They sat together and picked scholarship winners for the University of Arkansas Business School Walton Scholarship when it was new. So it was kind of cool. But my grandpa took me, he lived in Fayetteville, Arkansas, little city. And before we had computers at home, he would take me, I'd go for a week in the summer to spend with my grandparents. And on weekdays, we'd drive downtown to the bank and he'd pull up the computer terminal. It wasn't like a real computer like we have now. It was just a terminal with the black background and the green text, like it looks like the Matrix. And he would type in ticker symbols to get the live stock prices. And these were the days that the only time to get your stock prices was when you got your Wall Street Journal every day. So that was a day old. And my grandpa wanted current. So we'd go to the bank and he'd start quizzing me, like, what's BBY? Oh, it's Best Buy. So I'd start learning ticker symbols and he'd start teaching me about what those little shares of stock all represented. And then I was also lucky. My dad, who passed away recently, I was sad to lose him, but he was a great entrepreneur in his own right. I don't know if I'd say great, but he was an entrepreneur in his own right. And I learned a lot from him. We owned a video store as a family. That's why I say not great. We all know what happened to those. But actually, if you go, like, my second or third blog post ever on my own site was Netflix versus the video store. So now it's just Netflix. It's been a while since I wrote that. But having that experience growing up in a family business, I could hop on my bike and 15 minutes later I'd be at the store, 20 minutes later. So I could go over, I'd help with whatever my parents needed. I felt like I was part of the business, even though I didn't get paid much, if ever. And my dad gave me a house, so I can't complain too much. But I'd go help. One time my parents were out of town on a cruise. I think I was about 10. And my mom's parents were in town. And I said, Grandpa, you need to drive me over to the store because they just called and said the computers are broken. And the person my parents left in charge, the 50, 60-year-old adult, didn't know what to do. So they called my house, and there were no cell phones yet. My parents were out of reach. So my grandpa drove me over, and I remember digging through the desk, finding the business card of the company who built the network, and calling at like 3 or 2 o'clock on a Friday saying, you guys need to get here today. I don't care what it costs. You have to fix the computer. Because Friday afternoon, when you owned a video store in the 90s, that was busy. So you got to get here before the weekend. And I was this 10-year-old kid yelling at these business people, like, get here. And they did it. And I remember that day I spent 10 or 12 hours at the store. And when my parents got back from the cruise, I told my dad the whole story. He was super proud. And I said, minimum wage is, $6 an hour. I work 10 hours. I want $60 or something. I should have charged more, but he happily gave me $60.
What so you saw firsthand how Entrepreneur worked with the video store, with your father's business store.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any interest of jumping in, being an entrepreneur off the back when you graduated college? Because I know you went to the corporate world.
Yeah, so I always had an entrepreneurial bug, but I didn't ever really think that was the direction I was going to go with my career. Actually, in high school, college, I'd say a lot of people want to be on Sports Illustrated. I want to be on the cover of Fortune. That was always my goal. I wanted to be a Fortune 500 CEO. And I don't think that's a goal of mine anymore. They work way too hard. They have long hours, Fortune 500 CEOs. But hats off to them. They get paid well for it. Maybe a little too much. I don't know. But that was what I wanted to do for a long time. These days, so what was funny, looking back, though, it was not shocking I became an entrepreneur. Like looking back at Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts, I was selling popcorn. Girl Scout cookies, boys sell popcorn. So I sold a lot of popcorn. And then when I got to Boy Scouts, we could pay for our summer camp and our ski weekends. I grew up in Denver, so ski weekends and camping trips through book sales. And when I found that, I was like, well, I got to pay for my camp. Even though my parents, they would have paid for it. They wouldn't have had a problem paying to send me to Boy Scout camp. But I was like, well, I can do this. And the years I'd really tried the number one seller in my troop by 2 or 3 times over often, selling those books. I'd pay for everything for the whole year in that 1 or 2 months of selling books. Then I had other little business ideas here and there. I remember those "What Would Jesus Do" bracelets way back when. I started a little business selling "Never Eat Yellow Snow" NEYS bracelets. I thought that'd be funny for snowboarders. It didn't take off. I lost a couple $100, but learning story. I have a lot of other little businesses along the way that I started online that didn't work out. But the thing that did, what ended up sending me on this real path, started as a hobby. So I started blogging in the summer of 2006. I was actually working at Boy Scout camp. I worked there for 7 years after all those summers that I went as a camper. And my last summer, I was running the main office, and we had satellite internet for the first time. So I was able to use my laptop I had for school when I wasn't, helping Scoutmasters and, dealing with check-ins and radios and all that stuff. So on my downtime, I got to sit and I started a little blog. And that was what ultimately led me a couple of years later to start another blog that became Personal Profitability. And that's the brand I still run today with those profiteers you mentioned. So it started as a hobby. It started as a side hustle. I never really thought I'd be a full-time blogger when I started that. I thought it would be cool if I made a few bucks to pay for my beer money or something, which in my 20s, that's a good goal, right? To cover your beer tab. But eventually that grew to a point that it was covering my rent, and then it grew and I bought a condo and it was covering my mortgage. And in 2016, I went full time, and it's been actually about 2 weeks ago was my 5-year anniversary of full-time entrepreneurship.
Were you scared at all when you left your corporate job to be blogging full time?
Oh yeah, I was terrified. So when I quit my job, as I mentioned, it was 5 years ago. And at that point, I had a 6-month-old daughter. She's now 5.5. And my mom, my wife, was a stay-at-home mom, and she still is. And I had a good salary, a good income. I was making probably, I don't know, double what the average person made in my city per year at that point. So, good income, not quite 6 figures, but on the way. Health insurance was huge, especially with the new daughter. I knew what it cost to have a kid with health insurance. So I was thinking, geez, what's this health insurance going to look like when I do it on my own and don't have help from work? But like any good, responsible dad with a 6-month-old daughter, I thought, well, this is the perfect time to quit my job and sell my house and move to one of the most expensive parts of the country. So that's what we did. And yeah, here we are.
What was, going through that decision, right? Because I talked to a lot of different people where that decision of transitioning from the safe zone to basically jump on your own and being your own boss. right? Some people, okay, I'm just going to do it. Other people have their 3-year goal, 4-year goal of actually transitioning out. What was that like for you?
So yeah, it was a goal that it came and went. Like there were times that I always thought, oh, it'd be cool to do this full time. And I started going to a conference called FinCon. It's a financial blogging and media conference. It's awesome. I've been to all of them, and I have a lot of good friends from there. And I started seeing them going full time. Like, Eric, you can do this. You can go full time. But it's easier said than done, right? Especially when you have two people in addition to you and a mortgage, financially dependent. So the night I gave my notice, I kind of freaked out. I was like, did I just make the biggest mistake of my entire life? And my wife was always really supportive. My mom was always really supportive. Interestingly, my dad said I was crazy to leave this job path that I'd worked so hard on. And my uncle pretty much agreed with him. So I had two people saying, don't do this. Two people saying, you can absolutely do this. So I had like the little devils and the little angels on the shoulder, except, telling me what I should and shouldn't do with the business. Well, there were a couple things that really were the catalyst for change. Actually, there's a great quote from the book, The Art of Nonconformity by Chris Guillebeau, that kind of describes this point that happened to me, but I think it really happens to everybody who goes through this transition. And the quote says, the opportunity either has to be so good that you're willing to throw away what you have right now to jump in and go for it, or what you have right now has to be so bad you're willing to risk everything to get out of it. And I was in a really good career position. I was respected by my coworkers. I was definitely not like, I got to get out of here. But there were days, I remember one specific day about a week before I gave my notice, I had to get to work before the sun came up and leave after sunset, which is not that crazy in Portland in the winter. But I had to leave for work before my daughter was up for the day. And I had got home after she was asleep. So the whole day I didn't get to see my kid because of work. And I thought, well, that's not right. That's not, I'm working for my family, not working to not see my family. And there was no amount of money that would make it worth not seeing my kids. I have 3 kids now, and they're, like I hope other parents feel like the best thing in my life. They're amazing. So I want to see them all the time, and having to, if I have to go to a conference or a work trip for a few days, a week, whatever, I can do that. But having like full days that I'm home and can't even see my kid, that's crazy. So that was part of why I left my job. But I know a lot of people have that. It's how do you leave that secure, stable safety net to go to something risky? And it's definitely not right for everybody. But I knew I had made 40,000 on the side in revenue the year before. So I knew if I could do that revenue part-time, I could do at least that full-time, ideally double to triple, which turned out to be more than triple in the long run. But that was a starting point. As I said, I knew I can do at least that. And I had some really good savings. And I have those 2 finance degrees. So I said to my wife, what's the worst thing that happens? I go find a job. There are jobs out there. And if my big failure is going out to find a good finance or accounting job that pays me close to 6 figures, then I guess that's okay if I fail at this. And it turned out I didn't fail at this. I did great. And it was not super easy in the beginning. The first few months, we moved to Southern California, one of the most expensive parts of the world. Right as I quit my job, that put us closer to my in-laws, which was a big motivator to have our kids grow up closer to family and this amazing weather. We can't beat it. It's you just can't beat the weather here. But the first couple months, we had an apartment that cost $2,000 or something a month, which is a huge amount of money, especially when you just quit your job and your income just went way down. So it was definitely a stressful first few months. But what ended up really alleviating that stress, it was with the strong finance background, I was staring at my QuickBooks. I do all my own bookkeeping and accounting because I have that background. Most people, I think, could do that, but it's not necessarily right for everyone to do their own. For me, it's good. So I was doing my books and putting my financial analyst hat on. That's what I wore at work for a long time. And I noticed, looking at the screen here, I'm like pointing at the screen, pointing at the camera. I noticed that about 76% of my income, so about 80% of my income was coming from writing. And by my estimate, that was taking about 20% of my time. And I was doing web development work also. And I noticed that was pulling in about 15-20% of my income, but taking 80-90% of my time and giving me probably 95% of my stress. And anyone who's number savvy probably picked up a couple of averages in there. 80-20. Like, that was the 80-20 rule. It pretty much hit me in the face. It was like, Eric, stop doing web development work. It is costing you too much. Do writing only. So it was scary. That was about 3 months after I quit the job. I was like, am I going to walk away from a whole business line? And I did. It was like kind of cutting off an arm of the business. I emailed all the clients and said, not doing this anymore after another month or so. And my income did dip a little bit that next month, but then it started to go up, and it went up again, and then it went up again, and then it broke through 10,000 a month, and it hardly has ever dipped back down. That was really the big success moment for me. After I quit the job, figuring out that 80-20 thing, it really revolutionized how I was working. I got very focused on what was working best in my business, and it grew. So that's my big advice: is find what's working well in your business. My story was not a straight line. I did not plan on doing this, but I saw something that was working and I focused on it, and I did it again and again and again. And now I have this awesome lifestyle where I work at home. I work whenever I want. And as long as I get my deadlines met, my clients are happy. And obviously quality is important, but this lets me run the lifestyle I want rather than have my work run my life.
Did you ever think about picking web design back up again, maybe looking at it in a different way of how you would do it with less time or charge more money, anything like that?
I have thought about it. It's because I enjoyed it. There was a reason I started it. And I still do my own websites because just like accounting, because I can and I know how. Though I do get to a point sometimes where I get stuck and pay someone to help fix some stuff. If I hit a coding point where I'm just stuck and I'm like, I don't want to spend 6 hours figuring this out. I'll pay somebody and they'll figure it out in 10 minutes. So there are times like that. But I've thought I could grow a scalable business where I hire other developers and programmers and designers, just like any other kind of business, right? You can take that service and kind of productize it and turn it into something you can sell. So whether it would be a higher rate or outsourcing, there would be ways I could get back into that. But with the success I've seen in writing, I treat that as kind of like a shiny object. It's attractive, but I need to keep my distance so I don't get distracted and harm the writing business that I've built.
How does it work for the writing? And you're working with a variety of different companies. Do you come up with a topic idea? Are they throwing the topic idea to you, and then you're saying yes or no, or how does that work?
A mix of what you just described, pretty much all those things. So it depends on the client. I have some clients who will come to me with a very specific topic and even an outline ready to go, and SEO keywords and a few internal links to look at and include. So sometimes it's very specific, and I like that because then I know I'm delivering exactly what the client wants. Sometimes they'll just say, here's a title. Can you write it and get it in by this date? I like that too. It gives me freedom, flexibility. Some clients send out an email once a month and say, these are the topics we're trying to cover this month. Do you have any ideas that are related to that? And I have a couple clients who say, just send us ideas. What we write about. But most usually have a pretty good idea of what they want or the regions of the internet they want covered when I come in.
What do you think, or what kind of advice would you give? Let's say if someone's a writer, they're looking to grow their freelance writing platform, the best way of getting in front of these different companies?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and the answer is evolving over time.
Okay.
Pre-COVID, I would say go to conferences. That is really where I met most of my clients. So it's FinCon and similar events where I can sit down with the head of marketing or the head of content strategy at a fintech startup. We can sit and make a deal right there, and or at least become buddies. Then we'll hammer at the rest on the internet, by email when we get home. So meeting and building relationships has been just critical to me. But most people aren't just going to start by showing up at a conference they've never been to. So if you're newer to it, or you just really want to get started and dabble in writing just to try it out, there are some good job boards online. There's places like Upwork and Fiverr, which they're good for very new writers. The thing there is you're also competing with people in India and the Philippines who are happy to work for $4 an hour. So your rates might not be as good, but that can get you experience in a portfolio. So it might be worth it. I always tell people don't work for free, but in the beginning, if you work for crap rates, at least you can get paid to build a portfolio. So that'd be my advice is if you're really new, it's okay to take a crappy client that doesn't pay that much as long as it's a relatively short-term deal and it'll make you look good or get you towards that goal. So as you build up that portfolio, eventually you get noticed, which is great. I love it when companies email me and say, hey, I saw you wrote this article on Nerdwallet or Investopedia or wherever I write. And then they hire me out of that, which is great. That's how some of my best clients find me now. But in the beginning, that wasn't happening. So it was going to conferences, networking, a lot of outreach, but other job boards to consider if you're new while you're building that portfolio. ProBlogger has a job board that's pretty good. I'm actually clicking right now. I have a list I put somewhere. If I can find it. Sorry to keep you waiting. Awesome internet people. Here we go. freelancewritinggigs.com. That's another one. I said Fiverr. Yeah, so there's a few out there. If you just Google, freelance writing gigs, you'll find some.
I think that's helpful. I mean, any place. I mean, any places are going to be beneficial. Just getting out there, Googling and finding it. And if you could, I know you've already given, insight into your transition from corporate world to being an entrepreneur, right? And it seems like it was really family based, more time with your family. Right?
Yeah, that was a big part of it. I wanted to control my schedule. I wanted to work when I wanted.
If you could give advice, maybe to yourself, maybe that kid that graduated college, joined the corporate world, is there any piece of advice you'd go back and give that person?
I'd probably say don't be afraid to invest in the business a little earlier. I'm very conservative with my investing and a lot of things I do with my money. And part of that had me conservative with how I spent money in the business early on. So when personal profitability was brand new, it was narrowbridgeadventures.blogspot.com. That cost $0. I should have probably spent at that point, $7 to buy a domain name. Now it costs $10, $12 to buy a domain. I know people who have these blogs they spend hours and hours a week on. Like, you won't spend $10 a year just to make it like yourwebsite.com. So don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money. I mean, don't go overboard. Don't go crazy. But $100, if I'd put that in the beginning, could have gotten me a domain name, hosting. That it would have been less, probably would have been 50 or 60. You still could do it for about 50 or 60 if you want to do it really cheap. But just rounding, let's call it $100 a year to have all of your website hosting, all that stuff. That's something. If you're not willing to put $100 into your business, you probably shouldn't be starting it. And I was wanting to earn the $100 before I put it in. So I said, I want to make $100 online and then use that to build the business. Where if I had, I wasn't making, a huge income right out of school, but I was doing well enough. I could have come up with $100 or I could have come up with $12 or $60 to get a domain name and hosting. So do that. If you want to be a podcaster, get your own .com, get a microphone. Here's mine. If you want to do video, here's the camera. If you want to do FBA shipping, get the scale and the tape. If you want to do, if you want to be a masseuse, you go to masseuse school, you get a table. You have to spend a little bit of money to get the right skills and knowledge and the starting toolkit. For whatever business it is you're trying to build. Real estate, you need a real estate license. You need to go to take some classes. That takes money, that takes time. But if you really want to be a real estate agent, I mean, not only do you have to do that by law, but I'd say that's probably a very useful investment of your time and money because you learn so much good stuff about how to be a real estate agent. That's your tools, your your knowledge, your skill set. So, that's the way that's what I'd tell myself. Don't be afraid to spend a little money to start out. Don't go overboard, but don't be too afraid, because it's an investment.
Invest in yourself. No, it makes sense. I mean, take that jump, take that risk, but it's a calculated risk. Now, if someone's looking to find the right product for their business, right? Because I know you have a lot of different platforms out there where you're doing research on. Maybe someone wants to become a profiteer, right? And join your family, your network. What's the best way of them following you, connecting with you? What's the best way, Eric?
Sure. So the easiest way to just connect with me, if you have any questions, want to say hello, is on Twitter. I'm Eric Profits there. But if you want to dive in, you like what I had to say and you're excited, I have a freebie to give you. If you go to eric.money/bootcamp or personalprofitability.com/bootcamp. I just like being able to say eric.money/bootcamp. That's a new thing I set up. So I was invested in my business, $40 a year or whatever, to get eric.money. So eric.money/bootcamp. There's a free week-long course there. You just drop in your email and you'll get a message every morning for a week with a link to a video. They're about 10 minutes long to start you on your path to personal profitability. Like I said, I'm not selling anything there, just a free course. So I hope you enjoy it.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Eric, for being on the platform. Thank you for everyone listening to the Road to Growth, and hopefully you got some great nuggets there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff Eric brought up that maybe changed the way that I'm looking at reviews and things like that, even though I know it in some sectors, and I should have just, I guess, not been as gullible or naive with other sectors. But yeah, be aware of what you're reading. Maybe look at the 2 to 4-star reviews a little more. But thank you again, Eric, for being on the podcast. Please subscribe, please share, everyone, and tell your friends.